Hi there. You're listening to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. My guests and myself share our entrepreneurial journey and our methods for a balanced life. And I'm joined here today by Anderson. Anderson, I'd love you to introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you, Leo. I appreciate you having me on the show. I know we've been going back and forth and chatting for quite some time, so I love to be here. Yeah, my name is Anderson Salgado. I'm an entrepreneur, veteran turned entrepreneur. My history is a little long, but I'll give you kind of the 30-second elevator pitch. So I'm a veteran, Marine Corps veteran, served 12 years in the Marine Corps. I was also recruited by Amazon when I finished my MBA to lead one of their categories. They have a clever way of recruiting. And after 8 different interviews, Amazon recruited me to be the leader of their beauty category that turned later into professional and premium beauty. And I left Amazon, started my own agency. We've been working with a ton of CPG brands or consumer packaged goods brands over the last 8 years. And I'm the host of the Faith Frontlines and Fortune podcast, and I'm a co-host on a YouTube channel by the name of Cap Chatfield Show. And we got 1.4 million subscribers.
Wow, thank you. That sounds like a fun journey. So talk a little more about, obviously, the I guess your main 2 things these days are Amazon and the podcast.
Yeah, that's pretty much consuming majority of my life. We do a little bit of consulting also for other brands on how to get more authority online. That's turning a little busy these days, but yes, you're absolutely right. Majority of our time and financials come from both the show, the YouTube channel, as well as our Amazon brands.
And you also now turned your podcast into revenue generation as well, in terms of consultancy, telling people how you're doing.
Yeah, that came into my lab, as a matter of fact. We were doing the podcast, Faith Frontlines and Fortune. My intent was to grab entrepreneurs, individuals that are believers, as well as individuals that perhaps were part of the military and now they're in the entrepreneurial journey. And that turned to be something interesting because I had one of our clients say, Anderson, I love what you did here with the podcast on getting me on the show. Can you teach me how to do that? I mean, I guess I could, but we're pretty busy with the channel. We're pretty busy with our brands on Amazon. The podcast is really to build relationships and obviously find the entrepreneurial journey and learn a little bit from you on best practices. Like, I know, but like the way that you and I got in touch, the way that you did the entire process on how to communicate with me, as well as me being interested in the podcast, I think I can monetize that. So if you can teach me how to do that from a consultant, I'll make it worth your while. I'll pay you for the day or whatever you charge per hour, and I'll make sure that, I reserve 10 hours of your time, and then we can just go through it. I'm like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. And I spoke to, some of my team members. I was like, hey, can we turn this into perhaps a service? And some of them, were hesitant. It was like, this is not really set up for that, but I guess we could. So we're still kind of putting all the pieces together and improving on a daily basis. But yeah, that's another thing that is turning right now as of January of 2025, where we turned it around and said, yeah, maybe this is a good service that we can sell. So we've been entertaining more and more that capability, and it's turning into a pretty fun project.
That's really the entrepreneurial journey, isn't it? It's you're ducking and diving and following where it leads. It's you start with one thing and then you're like, well, this actually really makes sense, and I can make money doing this and have a bit of fun and head that direction.
Yeah, totally. I like the quote, be stubborn on your mission, flexible with the details. So oftentimes us as entrepreneurs, and you can probably attest to this, when we're too stubborn and we're not flexible in a particular vision, we still want to make sure that vision is alive, but the way that we get there perhaps is different. So we have to be a bit flexible on the journey, but the destination remains the same. I have an analogy that I've used in the years where think about it as you traveling down to a national park. Let's say that, you want to go to Yellowstone National Park. So that's your destination. You still want to get there. But what car we take or what sandwiches we pack, it's completely up for, our the moment, right? So perhaps it's more ideal to go in the SUV with the kids, right? But if you want to save some money, maybe you go into the little car. So the destination has not changed, but how we get to that destination it's always flexible. And that's what I've been applying into my entrepreneurial journey, where we're getting to the same destination, or the destination has not changed, but oftentimes how we get there it's the fun part, right? Is that element that spice up your day and gives you that element of adventure. So as I mentioned, I got into this thing thinking that it would be a cool conversation with a bunch of entrepreneurs, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, I want to know how you actually got this done. See if you can teach it to me, and it's turning into a project on its own.
I think that sounds fun and sounds exciting. It's allowing you to find new ways to grow the business and meet new people. Always the fun thing on these kind of podcasts. Talk to me about family. What does sort of family mean to you? And you also your kids.
Yeah, I always say I'm third. So I'm a firm believer that God is first, family second, I'm third. And my wife, luckily, she has that same mantra. She lives that same model 100%. So I've kind of learned over time. I'm divorced. I got remarried, and the same mistakes that I had in my first marriage, I don't want to ever make in my current marriage. So one of the things that I put aside, it's pride. And oftentimes as men, as you probably know, we want to do certain things our way. For me, I'll give you an example. For me, I'm a very stubborn individual. I want to do things certain way. I am a neat freak, organization, enthusiast. And the problem with that oftentimes is that there isn't a lot of room for mistakes and flexibility within my household. But my wife is so amazing. She has the ability to kind of maneuver through that complexity. And it's like, hey, baby, why don't you do this? And I do that. And that has turned into the best friendship relationship that we could have ever built. So to answer your question, I am here to serve my family. And oftentimes I apply that same methodology with my friends and partners. Because if I have a great relationship with someone, I want to serve them. And if it's reciprocal and we're on the same level, then they're going to serve me as their partners. And that has worked really well. Have I been burned in the past because of it? Absolutely. But I think that's the beauty of life. So family for me is my wife, 2 kids, and then I got one on the way and a dog. My older kids from my first marriage are soon to be 12 and 15. Now I got one on the way, so we'll have a huge gap. We'll have a 15-year-old and a newborn, and then I got a 3-year-old puppy who's amazing. She's a golden doodle. And family is great, man. One of the beautiful things about family is if you really want to find purpose in life, have kids. It gives you a different perspective of everything. And look, if you're the type of person who's like, I don't ever want to have kids, I'm happy, I like traveling, that you're living a different world in comparison to those of us who have kids, because it teaches you so much on being patient, being gracefully given a lot of that patience to your kids as well. I'm not the most patient individual, but family to me is everything. And money is going to come and go, but as long as I have my family and my wife and my best friend, I'm good. Life is good. God is good. And I live that every day of my life.
That's lovely. And I think the other thing it teaches is true love. As in, someone said to me the other day, that there is no love that compares with the love you have for your children. You may love your spouse, but there is nothing quite like the love for children, because that's a love that can't ever really change. I guess it can grow, but it can't.
No, I totally see your point, and that was my mentality. Interestingly enough, I'm reading with my wife a book. We read it together. We kind of been slacking over the last week, but it's The Meaning of Marriage, and it has changed my perspective. So I was on that same boat, right? It's like the kids, the love that you feel for your kids, you'll never feel for anybody else. Interestingly enough, this is a more Christian book, but I'll give you kind of the thing that switched my mentality. It said that, at the beginning, men and women were created, to be together, right? So Genesis was talking about us having this amazing friendship and partnership with an individual that is, it's your flesh. Although our wives are not, according to the Bible, they are. And the interesting portion about my mentality shift is that you may love your kids more than anything else, but guess what? When they grow up, they're going to have their own love. And it's not going to be, they're still going to have love for you, but they're going to have their own family. They're going to build their own, their own household. They're going to have their own spouse. They're going to have their own kids. And now all this love that you put into an individual is now shifted, and they are giving love to somebody else. And I'm not saying don't love your kids. What I'm saying to you is that it shifted my mindset to go and say, oh, no, that the person is going to be there until I die. Yeah, my kids, but they're going to have their family. It's going to be my spouse, the one that I live with, sleep with, and spend majority of my time with. So my mentality has shifted tremendously. And again, I love my kids to death. They're amazing. I'll give my life for them. But the relationship that I have with my spouse now does not compare to any other love that I could ever have for anybody. It's insane. And I know, a lot of people are going to say, well, what if, get divorced? What if that we don't talk about it? It's not in our vocabulary. It'll never happen. And never say never, Anderson. Was like, well, I'm telling you right now, it's sealed, right? And the reason why I say that, Leo, and I know it's going to be controversial to a lot of people, from a guy who got divorced in the first place, right, is I want to live a different life than what I ever had. And that different life needs to be projected. And if I don't say it, and if I just keep it to myself, it's not going to happen, right? So to me, that mentality shifted so drastically to the point where I said, okay, so my spouse is my best friend lover. And that's the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. My kids, I love them. They'll be there. I'm always going to have them, but they're going to build their own family. And I need to be content and live with that decision. So you're right. The love that you have for your kids is something different, but I shifted my mindset where my wife is my best friend, my lover, and we're building something great together, and hopefully that lasts a lifetime. But I'm hopeful. I think that book, I recommend it to anybody. If you're married, the meaning of marriage, and it just shifts your perspective so drastically that you'll never see your spouse the same way.
I'll have to have a look at the book. Yeah, and some of that might be a discussion for another time.
Podcast.
That can be a whole discussion on. I've done a lot of work in this kind of world as well over the last few years. But for me, if I look at my deep meaning, sort of purpose in life, what do I want to leave this world with? For me, if I leave this world with two happy, healthy, well-adjusted kids, I've left the world in a much better place than I arrived it.
Totally agree.
That there's nothing more important to me. My kids are 19 and 22 now, and I'm happy to say I still have a very close relationship with them. And actually, my 22-year-old, my daughter, is a business partner co-founder in a new business that I'm launching as well. That will be live. We're launching together, and it'll be live in April. It's a new health app.
Amazing.
Not only we've always had a great relationship, but on top of that, now we're working together. So it's even more of a reason to talk nonstop. And I love it, and I just love that relationship I have with the kids. To me, as I said, I understand 100% what you're saying, and the beauty is, I think everyone needs to find their center point, their balance. To me, a lot of that, it's lots of things. It's good friends. It's it can take lots of different shapes, but for me, my children have always come first, and I think for me, always will.
And I respect that, and I think that's a purpose, driven life, when you're trying to, as you mentioned, leave the world better than what you found it. So I think kids are extremely important. Our youth is important. And 19 and 22, you said? They're the future, man. I'm telling you right now, oftentimes I hear individuals saying, it's like, oh, this new generation is so screwed up. This new generation doesn't appreciate, they're entitled. And one of the things that I heard recently was more driven on, no, actually change the narrative. We got to say, no, they're the future. This generation needs a lot of learning, but they're the future. Like, let's encourage them, not put them down, because our life and our world depends on it. So if you're saying that they're screwed up and they're going to ruin everything, then that's not giving them a lot of hope for the future, right? So I like your mindset where saying, yeah.
I think you're right. And I mean, you are right. And the problem is it's not that they're screwed up. It's that they have a different value system. And by the way, we had a different value system than our parents had.
That's right.
And our grandparents had. I think one thing that people criticize a lot is work ethic of the next generation. Let's call it Generation Z. I think your youngest would even be is it Generation Alpha?
Yeah,
what they're calling the next
so
one.
My 15-year-old is Z. My daughter is like in between the two, Alpha and Z. And then my new one is going to be Beta. So I got three.
Okay, you're old. You got 3 generations of kids. You're a millennial, I'm assuming.
I am.
In terms of you still fall into that. You see, I'm Gen X. The interesting thing for me is I actually think that Gen Z have their work ethic. I actually like it. What I think has changed, and yes, there's some that have a terrible work ethic, but to be honest, I can say that with people in any generation. But I think the difference is they said, actually, there should be a work-life balance. So I think in our parents' and grandparents' generation, there wasn't a work-life balance. I think, and then you get into our generation in some ways, and I know we're slightly different generations, but give or take, I think, you got into a place where work could be nonstop because of technology. And I think Generation Z are saying, you know what? Actually, I want a work-life balance. There's no point in working unless I get the life that comes with it, the fun. I've got a friend who's an emergency room doctor, and he said to me, problem with the next generation is they come in and they don't want to work 80 hours a week. Well, the problem is there should be nothing wrong with that. Why should they have to work 80 hours a week? Except, this is a much longer discussion, because of the cost of education, they sort of have to work 80 hours a week because they're never paying off their education. But putting that aside, is it unreasonable to say, no, actually, I want to work 30, 40 hours a week? I want a balance that's there rather than just working nonstop.
It's interesting. I heard, not that I support a lot of what this guy says, but Jeff, out of all people, Jeff Bezos said that at Amazon, they don't support the work-life balance. He supports work-life harmony. And because a balance is a trade-off. The more you do something, the less you do of something else. I think that was an incredible tactic for him to get his workforce to work more, to find harmony in working more. What I found, at least in my experience, is, a balance in theory to me sounds really good, but I think there is a little truth of what he was saying, because oftentimes what we have, and then this is going back to the entitlement portion, is wanting to have something without making some sacrifices. I'll give you a prime example. My son the other day, he's like, hey, Dad, can I have some money? I'm like, no, but you can work for it. He's like, but Dad, I just need to go and do this. And it's like, I just want to have some time with my friends. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but there's something that you have to give. And you don't have to give me, you have to give in order for you to earn that, right? Nothing is given, everything is earned. So for you to go and ask for money, to me, that's a very entitled mindset, because I, at your age, was not asking for money. I had to actually get a little part-time job because I didn't have the means like you do. So I like the work-life balance, because my wife and I all the time are thinking, honey, we need to balance the stress. Let's go out. Let's do something. We have a methodology of 777. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but every 7 days we go on a cheap date. Every 7 weeks we go a day away without the kids, and every 7 months we go for at least 7 days somewhere. So it's a 777 methodology. It's worked really well for our relationship. We're actually due today for our cheap date. So Thursdays are our cheap days. So I'll take it to the movies, or we'll go get ice cream, or whatever the case may be. But for my kid, especially my son, who's going to be 15 soon, I want to instill that mindset of you want something, you got to work for it, or there's a sacrifice. There's something that has to give. And oftentimes I find that the right balance to align with what you're saying is you have to be comfortable of making certain sacrifices. So I think, at least in my perspective, every time that I go and tell my wife is like, hey, honey, let's go to the gym and let's go and watch a little show together. That's kind of finding balance. But then I say, but at 8, I'm going to log in and put 2 more hours of work. Is that okay with you? And she'd be like, yeah, I can read, or yeah, I'm going to wash clothes, or yeah, I'm going to do whatever. So that, I think that's the balance that you're talking about, right? It's like you got to be comfortable on understanding where the sacrifice is. And if you're not comfortable with that, then you're always going to want more and expect more without putting the work and the time. And that right there, it's an imbalance. You have to understand really where the sacrifice is going to be made. Otherwise, you're always with this high expectation without putting the work and the effort. And yeah, my son and I sometimes, I go like, dude, you just got to be better. It's like, why are you not like that with Bella, with my daughter? Like, because she's a girl. You're the man of the house, right? You're going to be the man of the house. You're going to be the leader. You got to lead by example. And I got to be tough on you. And she's going to have other qualities. I know, call me a misogynist, man. But my thought process is I want him to be better. And if he's like 10% better than his peers, he'll dominate. And I think that's what we're missing oftentimes, is like that whole mindset of, I want this, but I don't want to put that effort. For us men, it's a killer. It's not only a productivity killer, but it's a mindset killer. And I want to deviate from that as much as possible. And that's kind of the struggle that I often find time. But I agree with you. I think this generation wants to have a high quality of life. They want to have better food. They want to be, more fit or fitter. They want to have this individuality, and they don't want to be told what to do. But at the same time, they want freedom, and it's difficult. And that balance is like, okay, well, if you want this, you're gonna have to give up this. And I think that mentality helps a ton of youth to understand really that, dude, you got to work for it. I mean, you know it. Your generation or Gen X works hard. Worked a ton of time, and we didn't have the technology. I'm a millennial, but I'm almost 40. So it's I grew up without a cell phone or Netflix or a TV. Like, my TV was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna watch this thing at this time, and there wasn't any binging or or the internet. And that shifted my mindset. Is like, we are so entitled. We are so privileged. So I want to make sure that I put my effort in anything I do. And that's why I think that there is this disparity and discrepancy between your generation and our kids. Because it's like, I should be able to have this. But that's not necessarily always the case.
What's health mean to you? What do you like to do for health? In whatever form that takes for you, by the way, whether that be exercise, meditation, sleep, food, what's health mean to you?
Man, the older I get, the more I appreciate a good night's sleep. My Mondays and Tuesdays are incredibly stressful. I normally just sleep 3 to 4 hours. So on Tuesdays, we have our live show. So I'm still putting together all the scenes, and we're putting together all the content that is going to go on the show. And even though it's only an hour show, the amount of research that we're doing prior to the show is just stressful. So my Mondays and Tuesdays are completely stressful. So I appreciate a good night's sleep. The more and more I do this, a good night's sleep is important. But I've been more on that habitual element where I want to make sure that I get a workout a day. So I work out every day. I know some people may say, it's like, that's not good for muscle growth and recovery. I'm like, okay, cool, man. But I treat the gym as my go-to for releasing all the stress and all the toxins out of my body. We eat really healthy in my household. In the Salgado house, we eat as good as we can. Although my wife being pregnant, she loves ice cream, man. So oftentimes, like last night, she's like, I'm going to have a little bit of ice cream. I'm like, I guess I'm going to have a little bit of ice cream too. But we eat as healthy as we can. She tracks all her calories, so I don't track my calories. But the best way that I found for me not to have to track my calories is that I skip lunch. I have a snack in the form of lunch, and then I have a very heavy breakfast and a very heavy dinner, and then my protein shakes here and there. So health for me means a good night's sleep, eating really well, having a workout a day. Even if I don't go to the gym, I want to go run outside. I'll take my dog to the park, or I'll do something where I'm active. Mental health, on the other hand, is I truly believe in quality time. I like to spend quality time with my wife. So we'll either read a book, or we'll watch a show together, or we'll ask couples questions. That to me is extremely important. So spending some time with her, to me, it leads me to that mental acuity that oftentimes I need. And she's a great advocate of reading the Bible on a daily basis. So I do my best to read as much as possible. Oftentimes I'm like, oh man, I didn't read today. Okay, let me get a 5-minute here and there. So for me, reading the Bible it gives me that clarity. And something that I do that a lot of people don't do is I program my time really well. So I have a calendar, although I've been kind of stressed out because oftentimes I get a bunch of phone calls. And I don't know how you feel about undesired phone calls in the middle of the day. They destruct my productivity a ton. So I'm trying to deviate from that as much as possible. But having a little bit of structure in my life, and that's with my calendar. It's like I'm waking up at this time, eating breakfast at this time, then I'm having these activities from this time to this time, having my calls at this time, having my podcast at this time, going to the gym here, coming back, eating, sauna time. All that frees up my time to go and be way more productive. And that to me is health. It gives me just an incredible element of tenacity anytime that I have a well-structured day, because I know what's going to happen. And knowing what's going to happen makes me mentally prepare for what the day comes, so I don't get a lot of the surprises. That to me has worked really well. So those are the 5 things that I appreciate the most. Good night's sleep, eating healthy, exercising on a daily, spending time with my family, my kids and my wife, and then organizing my day so I know what's happening. It gives me that mental acuity that I often need. And then most importantly, just having the word on a daily basis, I think is incredibly powerful.
Sounds very structured. What do you like to do for fun?
Gym is life for me. But like I said, we do the 7-7-7. So my wife and I will plan getaways. Last time we went to Idaho. She's like, hey, what do you think in our 7-week we go to Idaho? I'm like, what's in Idaho? She's like, I don't know. So we went to the Museum of Clean. Dude, I know it sounds ridiculous. It's a museum and you see a bunch of vacuums from the 1920s and you see like what people used to clean with. So to me, that's health, right? It's just being very spontaneous whenever we have our dates, whenever we have our time. So we'll go and we wanted to go do horseback riding. I'm like, well, you're pregnant right now, so let's wait after you're pregnant. But those are the type of things that we love doing, right? Just being spontaneous and thinking outside the box. We'll go to the south of Utah where, you have all those national parks. It's like, hey, let's just get away tomorrow. Let's rent an Airbnb and then we'll go for a hike. Okay, that sounds good. So that whole flexible aspect of just being spontaneous to me is awesome. And traveling, man, I love traveling. Anywhere we can go, anywhere we can go to a foreign country where we don't speak the language, where I'm in the plane trying to digest as much as possible for that language, and then getting in there and eating some crazy food that we've never tasted before. To me, that's fun. And I wish I could do more of it, but obviously we got to build a business. We got to build the lifestyle, obviously, that we want to support. But travel would be one of those that I say, if I could do anything and money wasn't an issue, I would be traveling all the time.
That's the advantage of having 19 and 22-year-old kids versus about to have a newborn. I can travel. I'm talking to you from Portugal, because why not?
That's awesome, man.
Are you good at turning off? Can you actually stop working? Can you say, you know what, taking a break in whatever form, whether that be for a few hours, whether that be for a few days?
Man, I think that's my biggest issue. I'm a workaholic. I do take my breaks pretty structured. Again, at noon, I'll have my coffee break. I'll spend a few minutes with the wife and then go back to work. So short breaks are normal for me. Long breaks are very difficult. I'm tied to my phone. I'm tied to my computer. That's oftentimes one of the things that I reflect on. I'm like, I'm a slave of my work. And as you probably know, in the US, we have this crazy mindset of, we live to work, not work to live. And every time I travel to Europe, especially Italy, I see their lifestyle. And oftentimes I envy that lifestyle because these individuals have way less than we do. And they live so much happier than we do. It's something I struggle with. Certainly something that I struggle with, certainly something that I need to be better at. And I think a lot of us do, especially again in the US, if you're in the tech world, if you're in the finance world, you're glued to your work and your work is your identity. And that's why you see a lot of depression among professionals and individuals who retire and they don't know what to do. I don't want to retire and then just buy a motorhome and just drive around or watch TV or watch football every weekend. I don't do that, right? I want to have that active retirement where I never have to work again, but I do it anyways. Perhaps in a more passive way, but it's a struggle. It really is. Oftentimes, and I see it with my partner, Cap, and he's right now in Mexico, but he's like texting me, hey, what's going on with the analytics? What's a click-through rate? And I'm like, dude, just go relax. I got it. I think is also our generation. We're glued to, listen to the statistic. Our generation is glued to the phones and content. We consume approximately. Dude, when I listened to this thing, I was just shocked as you're going to be. We consume approximately 82 hours of content per week. Wow is right. 82 hours of content on average per week. That's insane, man. And I believe it, right? Because I even do it. I'm like cooking and put a podcast on. Or, I'm going for a walk with my dog and then I'm listening to something. I'm listening to the news. And granted, that's my job too, because the show demands it. Like I have to be up to speed with all the news and what's happening in, especially in America. But the problem that you have is that you're constantly being bombarded with information. And one of the things that my wife said the other day is like, did you let your brain rest? Honey, sometimes it's just good to be in silence. Sometimes it's good to not have anything connected to you. Disconnect. And I'm like, you're right. So anytime that we go on a walk, I leave my phone behind, or there's no phones at the table, or hey, we're eating dinner. No, like everybody's tell me about your day. I think those are important, although we've been cheating. My wife and I are watching a show, and every night we're like, hey, you want to watch the show while we eat something? She's like, yeah. So, but to answer your question, it's so hard to disconnect. And then we're listening and have something in our ears all day long. And now we're walking around like zombies, especially our kids. So I want to make sure that I'm more intentional on that. So I'm working on it. It's not easy, as I'm sure. Obviously, the rhythm, especially when you're trying to build a business and you're trying to do a lot more. You're constantly plugged into something, but I need to be better. I need to be better at disconnecting from work and getting away from the grind and just be in my own thoughts or spend time in nature, not constantly being bombarded by content and ads and whatever the case may be.
And the lack of time off that you talked about resonates. Where, yeah, in America, people will get like 10 days off a year, and it's sort of like a badge of honor not to take it. And public holidays, some public holidays are truly public holidays, but probably half the public holidays in America, businesses are still open for. In Europe, yeah, there's a lot more holiday, and there's nothing productive about the American method of working, about barely taking 10 days off, actually taking less. There's actually nothing productive about that. People think you're more productive because you're working more. No, you actually do need breaks. I mean, I'm actually a big believer in taking holidays. It's probably because I'm British, but I think you do need to. Honestly, and by the way, the British is nothing like Europe. You take, say, the French, closed down for August. but the
Italians do too. Like a whole month of August, they close everything down and then they do the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. It's madness.
Yes, but putting that one aside, I do think, most of Europe, your sort of 20, 25 days of holiday plus public holidays, I do think that's healthy. I think you need to switch off. And by the way, I don't switch off when I'm away. I'm not the best at that. I actually have a good balance, which is I'll work for sort of a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening. So I can work sort of 2-3 hours a day. And actually my mind can switch off in between because I know I'm on top of stuff. But still, I mean, taking holidays is important. I'm actually a big believer in that. What's been a pivotal moment for you in your personal business life, or either or both?
I don't think there is one. I think it's several that have shifted my life in a different direction, for the better, for the worse. And then there's also learning on both. I came to the U.S. at the age of 15 from Venezuela, so I'm an immigrant here in the United States. But my kids call me oftentimes like I'm an Oreo cookie. So I'm like, dark on the outside and then white on the inside. Because I have like the American flag in my car, my phone, it's got an American flag on it. I can put the American flag everywhere I can of like a super, conservative patriot, right? But I think that was pivotal in my life. It completely and drastically changed not only my lifestyle. I came to the U.S. I didn't speak the language. I was very isolated. I live in an area where I didn't have any neighbors. We didn't grow up with any of the financial means that I have today and my kids have today. And I was very isolated too because I'm an only child. I have a half brother from my dad's side, but I kind of met him when I was already an adult. So it was truly my dad and I, and we lived in a little house that my story is so interesting, man, because we lived in a little house that my dad furnished and fixed up, and it was a shed. Like it was one of those equipment sheds, and he turned it into a little house, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, kitchen. I think that the total square footage I don't know what it's in meters, but square meters, but the square footage of the house was like 600 or 700 square feet. This is a tiny place for the two of us. My mom still lived in Venezuela, and she would come visit so often because she was getting her master's, and it was just my dad and I. And this is my stepdad, but I grew up with him, so I call him Dad. And the interesting portion to me about that pivotal moment is that I realized how your life can shift so drastically in one day. So we lived a comfortable life in Venezuela. My whole family came from a well-educated, I don't want to say wealthy, but at least upper middle class. My grandfather was a doctor. My grandmother was a professor. My other grandfather was a colonel in the army. Again, we came from a well-positioned family. Then I come to the States and we have nothing, and I live in a shed with my dad. And I don't speak the language, and we're in a somewhat poor neighborhood in Homestead, Florida, which is, if anybody's listening and you're from Homestead, Florida, right? Right now it's a little bit better, but back in the day, 2001, it wasn't it. make a long story short, I realized how everything is so temporary. Everything in life is so temporary, man. Everything is borrowed for a little bit of time. You think you have a car and then, like that car gets repossessed or you lose it or God forbid you get in a car accident, you no longer have the car and it switches like in a heartbeat. So to me, that was a major wake up call. I was 14 when I came, 15 when I came, turning 16. And I remember, one time my dad, we didn't have a car and we're taking the bus to go buy groceries. And I made a comment to him that even to this day, I regret. I'm like, Dad, we're so poor. And he turned around with this face and he's like, how dare you say that? I'm like, we're taking the bus to go buy groceries and we don't have a car and it's 100 degrees outside and we're going to walk a mile to go to the house. And he's like, you got both your legs, right? You got both your arms. You got all your toes and fingers and you're healthy and you have food. Dude, you're like among the top 3% of the world. And to me, that was impactful as a young kid. But it kind of made me realize, like, hey, he's right. Maybe it's not that bad. And then I go in the Marine Corps and then I go through a bunch of different other things. And then I get recruited by Amazon and then I go through a bunch of different things. And then I build my business and I go through a bunch of things and I go through a divorce and that's another thing. And then I get remarried and all those things made me realize that, dude, it's not that bad. You're not dying, you're not getting shot at, you're not being persecuted. You have 3 meals a day, you have a house, you're healthy. It's not that bad. So that to me was a shift in mindset because it's a point of realization that regardless of where you are, it could be worse. And it could always be better, but it could always be worse. So I'm living that as a testament today where, okay, this could be so much better, but it could also be so much worse. So that's kind of the framework, man. I'm living a great life. Business could always be better. I could always have a bigger house, a better car, travel more, but things are really good. And I don't want to complain. And I thank God for it. And I thank my wife and I thank my family. And I have a really good life, man. So pivotal moments, I would say that's one of them that I think I could share with you today that is impactful, where things could always be worse, things could always be better, but I'm just blessed of living the moment and having everything that I have.
Sounds like you're living the American dream.
I think I truly am. The last few years wasn't that great with everything was going on in the world, but I think 2025 is also a pivotal moment in our lives, and I think it's going to be so much better. So yeah, I think you're right. I'm living the American dream.
Absolutely love that. This has been a fun conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, in lieu of this discussion and understanding really what we've gone through it all, obviously you being in Portugal and kind of living that remote lifestyle and traveling, I get any opportunity to anywhere I go to just say, all of the stuff that are happening in my life or anybody's life, we wouldn't be able to be here if it wasn't for, at least our Lord and Savior, my Lord and Savior. And I want to thank, it is like take obviously opportunity to go and say, I'm so blessed, man. And God is so good. And it's good to be here. And it's good to be in your show and have these fun conversations. Oftentimes makes me realize like, hey man, I haven't thought about that in a while. So I want to thank you for kind of bringing a lot of those little memories and emotions back. But yeah, man, I'm blessed. And any of those that are listening who feel blessed, I think that there is a greater being that loves you and cares for you, and you're never alone. So that's all I want to say.
I love that. I think that's so true in whatever religion you believe in. I think that still that still holds true. So yeah, I think very, very much agree. And how can people find you?
Yeah, so we have multiple ventures and we're doing a lot of things. If you want to get a hold of me quickly, I have a platform. I'll give you the details so you can put in the description. It's called Midnect. So Midnect, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Midnect is, and you can find me, Anderson Salgado, on Midnect is an app. that allows you to have just quick conversations with me, whether it is text message or a phone call or a voice note. I'm really good. You'll get a response from me within an hour. So Connect is the best platform to get anything advice related to business, entrepreneurship, funding, or e-commerce, or anything that we are putting our hands into. But Connect is the best way. So that's MINNECT. That's Connect. And my name is Anderson Salgado. You can find me there. Send me a message, and I'll be more than glad to reply back within that hour.
Not whilst you're walking.
Say that again?
No technology. Not whilst you're walking. Got no technology at that point.
Sure.
Well, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends, and come back for next week.